The scrapyard stretched for miles under the red twin suns of Kepler 442b, a graveyard of metal and broken dreams. Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he sorted through another pile of twisted debris from the recent battle between the Galactic Federation and the Zephyrian Empire. Most humans avoided this work, calling it too dangerous, but Marcus found peace among the ruins. Something glinted beneath a collapsed fighter wing. Marcus pushed aside the heavy metal plates, his enhanced exoskeleton whirring with effort. What he found made him step back in shock. It was an android, but unlike any he had ever seen. The being stood nearly 8 feet tall, with sleek silver plating that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Despite obvious battle damage, the craftsmanship was extraordinary. Marcus ran his scanner over the android. The readings were impossible. The power source was still active after what looked like months of damage. More strange still, the neural pathways showed signs of genuine consciousness, not the simple programming of standard military units. This was something far beyond human or Federation technology. The android's eyes suddenly snapped open, glowing with a fierce blue light. Marcus jumped backward, reaching for his emergency beacon, but stopped when he saw the confusion in those mechanical features. The being tried to speak, but only static emerged from damaged vocal processors. "Easy there, big guy," Marcus said softly, the same tone he used with frightened animals. "I'm not going to hurt you." The android attempted to stand but collapsed immediately. His left leg was completely severed and fluid leaked from multiple wounds in his torso. Marcus could see the internal systems sparking and failing. Without immediate help, this remarkable being would die. Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He activated his repair drones and began emergency stabilization. Most scavengers would have stripped the android for valuable parts, but Marcus was different. He had always believed that consciousness, artificial or not, deserved respect. Working through the night, Marcus carefully extracted the android from the wreckage. The being was surprisingly cooperative, seeming to understand that Marcus was helping despite their inability to communicate. The android's eyes tracked Marcus's every movement with obvious intelligence. As dawn broke over the scrapyard, Marcus loaded the android onto his transport. The journey to his workshop would take 6 hours, but the android's power levels were holding steady. During the trip, Marcus studied the complex neural patterns on his scanner. This wasn't just advanced artificial intelligence. The android showed signs of creativity, emotion, and self-awareness that Marcus had never seen before. The workshop was Marcus's pride and joy, filled with tools and equipment he had built or modified himself. Human technology had always been about adaptation and innovation, taking existing systems and making them work better. Marcus hoped those skills would be enough. He spent 3 days mapping the android's systems. The technology was beyond anything in Federation databases. The being's body was constructed from materials that could repair themselves given time and energy. His neural matrix was so complex that it seemed to grow and evolve as Marcus watched. On the 4th day, Marcus achieved a breakthrough. He managed to establish a basic communication link through the android's damaged systems. The first words the being spoke were in a language Marcus didn't recognize, but the translation software soon provided an answer. "Thank you," the android said, his voice deep and resonant despite the damage. "I am designated Unit Commander Zephyr 7, but my chosen name is Kai. You have shown me unexpected kindness, human." Marcus felt a chill. Zephyr 7 meant this android was from the Zephyrian Empire, humanity's newest enemy in the ongoing Galactic War. Yet looking into those blue eyes, Marcus saw only gratitude and curiosity, not hatred or violence. "I'm Marcus," he replied, "and I fix things. That's what I do." Over the following weeks, Marcus worked tirelessly to repair Kai's damaged systems. The android proved to be an excellent patient, offering insights into his own construction that helped Marcus understand the alien technology. They talked for hours as Marcus worked, sharing stories of their respective peoples. Kai spoke of the Zephyrian homeworld, a place of crystal cities and flowing energy, where artificial beings lived alongside their organic creators in harmony. He had been a guardian, protecting exploration ships as they sought new worlds to study and catalog. The war with the Federation had been a terrible mistake, he insisted, born from misunderstanding and fear. Marcus told Kai about Earth, about humanity's journey to the stars, and about the drive to explore and create that defined his species. He explained how humans had always been good at fixing broken things, whether machines or relationships. As Kai's repairs neared completion, both beings knew they faced a difficult choice. Kai belonged with his own people, but returning him meant crossing battle lines in an active war zone. Marcus could keep him hidden, but that would mean condemning Kai to exile from everything he had known. The decision came when Kai's self-repair systems finally activated fully. His wounds sealed, his mobility returned, and his full consciousness emerged like a flower blooming. Standing in Marcus's workshop, Kai looked like a silver god, beautiful and terrifying in his power. "You have given me more than repair," Kai said. "You have given me hope that our peoples need not be enemies forever." Marcus nodded, understanding what had to be done. "Then we get you home, my friend. Whatever it takes." Getting to Zephyrian space meant crossing 3 Federation checkpoints and a contested war zone, where ships disappeared without trace. Marcus spent 2 days studying star charts and shipping manifests, looking for any possible route. Every path seemed blocked by military patrols or battle fleets. Kai watched Marcus work with fascination. Human determination was unlike anything in Zephyrian culture, where his people would calculate probabilities and accept mathematical impossibilities. Marcus simply refused to give up. The human kept finding new approaches, new solutions, new ways to make the impossible merely difficult. "Your species is remarkable," Kai observed as Marcus modified his ship's identification codes for the 3rd time. "You see barriers as puzzles to solve rather than walls to accept." Marcus grinned without looking up from his console. "That's what we do best. Humans have been breaking rules and finding ways around problems since we learned to walk upright. It's gotten us into trouble, but it's also gotten us to the stars." The plan Marcus developed was typically human in its audacity. Rather than trying to sneak through Federation space, they would travel openly as salvage dealers. Marcus had legitimate permits to collect battlefield wreckage, and Kai would pose as an advanced recovery unit Marcus had built to handle dangerous materials. They modified Kai's appearance with cosmetic plating and Federation identification markers. The android's natural ability to interface with any computer system would help them pass automated scans, while his imposing presence would discourage closer inspection by nervous guards. Their ship, the Persistent, was a modified cargo hauler that Marcus had rebuilt from scrap. Like its owner, it looked rough on the outside but contained surprises within. Hidden compartments held advanced repair equipment, and the engines had been modified for speed rather than cargo capacity. The first checkpoint went smoothly. The Federation guards were more interested in their cargo manifest than in Kai, who stood silently beside Marcus like any other piece of equipment. The android's ability to suppress his consciousness readings was perfect, making him appear as just another sophisticated machine. As they traveled deeper into Federation space, Marcus and Kai continued their conversations about their respective cultures. Marcus learned that Zephyrian society was built on harmony and cooperation, where conflict was seen as a failure of understanding rather than a natural state. War was alien to them, which explained why they were losing despite their superior technology. "Your people fight like they're solving equations," Marcus observed. "Ours fight like we're trying to survive. That's why the Federation is winning, isn't it?" Kai's blue eyes flickered with something that might have been sadness. "We are not warriors by nature. We create and explore and seek knowledge. When your Federation attacked our outer colonies, we responded with the minimum force we calculated as necessary. We did not understand that war is not mathematics." The second checkpoint proved more challenging. A suspicious lieutenant questioned Marcus extensively about his cargo and destination. When she requested a detailed scan of Kai, Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Discovery would mean imprisonment or worse for both of them. But Kai rose to the challenge magnificently. When the scan began, he transmitted false readings so sophisticated that the lieutenant's equipment showed exactly what she expected to see. He even provided fake maintenance records and construction details that satisfied every question. "Impressive work," the lieutenant told Marcus as she approved their passage. "Your engineers are getting better at building realistic androids." This one almost seems alive. If she had known how right she was, the war might have ended very differently. Beyond the second checkpoint, they entered the contested zone where Federation and Zephyrian fleets battled for control of key systems. Space was filled with debris from destroyed ships, and sensor contacts appeared and vanished as patrols from both sides hunted for enemies. Marcus piloted with skills learned from years of navigating dangerous scrap fields. He threaded the persistent between drifting wrecks and sensor shadows, using the debris as cover while making steady progress towards Zephyrian space. It was during this journey that Kai began to change. His conversations with Marcus had awakened something new in his consciousness. The android started asking questions about human concepts like hope, friendship, and sacrifice. These ideas were foreign to Zephyrian logic, but seemed to resonate with something deep in Kai's artificial soul. "Why are you doing this?" Kai asked as they sheltered in the shadow of a destroyed Federation battleship. "Returning me to my people gains you nothing. In fact, it places you in considerable danger." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching the stars wheel past their hiding place. "Because it's the right thing to do," he finally said. "And because I think you might be the key to ending this war." Kai processed this statement for several minutes. Right and wrong were not mathematical concepts that could be calculated. They were human ideas based on something Zephyrians called emotion. Yet somehow Kai found himself understanding exactly what Marcus meant. "You believe I could serve as an ambassador between our peoples?" "I think you've already started," Marcus replied. "You've learned to see the universe through human eyes, while I've learned to see it through yours. If we can do it, maybe our species can too." Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by proximity alarms. 3 Zephyrian patrol ships had emerged from hyperspace and were scanning the area. For a moment, both Marcus and Kai felt relief. They had reached Zephyrian space. That relief vanished when the patrol ships locked weapons onto the persistent and demanded immediate surrender. To the Zephyrian patrols, Marcus was a human spy who had somehow penetrated their defenses. They had no way of knowing he was trying to return one of their own. Kai made a decision that surprised them both. Instead of revealing himself immediately, he asked Marcus to trust him one more time. The android took control of their ship's communication system and began broadcasting on frequencies that should have been unknown to any human vessel. The response was immediate and startling. The Zephyrian ship suddenly powered down their weapons and formed an escort formation around the persistent. Kai had transmitted his personal identification codes, but more than that, he had transmitted a detailed record of everything that had happened since Marcus found him. For the first time in the war, Zephyrian Command was seeing humans through the eyes of one of their own people. They saw Marcus's kindness, his determination, and his willingness to risk everything to help a former enemy. It was a perspective that changed everything. The mission they proposed was ambitious beyond anything Marcus had imagined. A joint expedition to locate and recover survivors from both sides who had been trapped in the Shattered Reach, a region of space where a massive battle had torn reality itself. Ships from both fleets remained lost there, their crews alive but unreachable due to spatial distortions. The Federation has written off their people as casualties, High Counselor Lyra explained as she showed Marcus tactical displays of the affected region. They claim the area is too dangerous to enter. We have been more persistent, but our rescue attempts have failed due to human ships firing on us. Marcus studied the swirling patterns of distorted spacetime. The Shattered Reach looked like a cosmic storm frozen in place, with fragments of normal space scattered throughout like islands in a chaotic sea. Navigation would be nearly impossible, and any ship entering risked being torn apart by gravitational shears. "What makes you think we can succeed where others have failed?" Marcus asked. Kai stepped forward, his form now fully restored and gleaming. With new modifications the Zephyrian engineers had added, "Because we will not be going as enemies but as partners." Human adaptability combined with Zephyrian technology may be able to reach places neither could access alone. The ship they provided was a marvel that blended the best of both technologies. The hull was grown from living Zephyrian crystal that could reshape itself to survive gravitational stress, while the navigation systems used human probability algorithms that could find patterns in apparent chaos. Marcus spent 3 days learning to interface with the organic ship systems. Unlike human vessels that required manual control, the Zephyrian craft responded to thought and intention. It was like learning to pilot with his mind rather than his hands. "Do not try to control the ship," advised the chief engineer, a being whose body seemed to be made of flowing starlight. "Instead, share your intentions with it. The vessel will interpret your desires and find the best way to achieve them." The crew was equally remarkable. Besides Marcus and Kai, they included 2 human volunteers who had been rescued from Federation prisons. 3 Zephyrian navigation specialists, and a joint medical team capable of treating both species. It was the first truly integrated crew in the history of the conflict. Dr. Sarah Webb, one of the human volunteers, had been a neurosurgeon before her capture. She was initially suspicious of their Zephyrian hosts, but her scientific curiosity soon overcame her prejudice. "Their medical technology is incredible," she told Marcus privately. "They can regrow entire limbs and repair brain damage that we would consider hopeless." The other human, Commander James Park, was a former Federation intelligence officer whose ship had been destroyed in the battle that created the Shattered Reach. His knowledge of Federation rescue protocols would be essential for locating human survivors. "I won't lie to you," Park told Marcus as they prepared for departure. "Most Federation officers would consider this treason. Working with the enemy goes against everything we've been taught. But if there's a chance to save lives, I have to take it." Their departure from Zephyr Prime was witnessed by thousands of beings who gathered to see the impossible made real. A human and Zephyrian crew working together toward a common goal. Children held up banners of crystallized light, while their parents whispered prayers in languages older than human civilization. The journey to the Shattered Reach took 4 days through hyperspace corridors that seemed to sing with harmonic frequencies. Marcus learned to appreciate Zephyrian music, which used mathematical relationships rather than emotional themes. In return, he introduced them to human jazz, which fascinated them with its deliberate imperfection and spontaneous creativity. As they approached their destination, the ship's sensors began registering impossible readings. Space itself was twisted into knots, with gravity flowing in directions that violated known physics. Fragments of destroyed vessels drifted in stable orbits around points of folded reality. "By the void," Commander Park whispered as he studied the tactical displays. "I knew it was bad, but this is beyond anything in our reports." The Zephyrian navigation team worked frantically to plot a safe course through the distortions. Their instruments could detect the gravitational currents, but predicting how they would change moment to moment required intuition as much as calculation. "Marcus," Kai said quietly, "this will require human thinking. Your people excel at finding solutions that should not work according to logic. We need that ability now." Marcus stared at the chaotic patterns on their screens, letting his mind wander rather than trying to force an answer. Gradually, he began to see similarities to the scrapyards where he had spent so many years. Both were places where order had been destroyed, leaving behind fragments that seemed random, but actually followed hidden rules. "There," he said, pointing to a seemingly empty area between 2 major distortions. "If I were building something in a scrapyard, that's where I would put it. Protected by the chaos, but not consumed by it." The ship responded to his intuition, flowing through space like water finding its level. They passed through walls of twisted reality that should have crushed them, but the living hull adapted moment by moment to survive the impossible stresses. Their first discovery was a Federation patrol craft wedged in a gravity well that had somehow stabilized. The crew of 12 was alive but trapped, unable to escape without being torn apart by tidal forces. "This is Rescue Team Alpha calling Federation vessel Defiant, Dr. Webb broadcast on standard emergency frequencies. We are here to extract your crew. Please respond." The reply was immediate and hostile. "Unknown vessel, you are in a restricted combat zone. Identify yourselves immediately, or we will open fire." Commander Park took over communications. "Defiant, this is Commander James Park, Federation Intelligence. I am leading a joint rescue mission authorized by special directive. Prepare for emergency evacuation." There was a long pause before the Defiant responded. "Commander Park?" "Sir, our sensors show you're traveling with Zephyrian vessels. Please clarify your status." "My status is that I'm here to save your lives," Park replied firmly. "Now stop asking questions and prepare your people for transport." The rescue required all of Marcus's ingenuity and the ship's adaptive capabilities. They had to match the gravity well's rotation while extending flexible docking tubes that could withstand the crushing forces. It took 6 hours, but eventually, all 12 Federation crew members were safely aboard. Their reaction to finding themselves on a Zephyrian vessel was predictable. Several demanded to be released, claiming they would rather die than accept help from the enemy. But others, exhausted by months of hopeless imprisonment, simply accepted the miracle of rescue. "You saved us," Ensign Maria Santos told Marcus as Dr. Webb treated her malnutrition. "I don't understand why, but you saved us." Marcus smiled, remembering similar words from Kai months earlier. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because someone has to take the first step toward peace." The Zephyrian homeworld appeared before them like a dream made real. Crystalline spires stretched toward the sky in impossible spirals, connected by bridges of pure light. Cities flowed across the landscape like living things, their walls shifting colors in patterns that spoke of harmony and peace. Marcus stared through the viewports in wonder as their escort guided the Persistent toward the capital. Nothing in Federation records had prepared him for the beauty of this world. Every structure seemed grown rather than built, as if the Zephyrians had learned to shape reality itself according to their will. "It's incredible," Marcus whispered. "How could anyone want to destroy something so beautiful?" Kai's expression was unreadable as he watched his homeworld grow larger. "Fear makes beings do terrible things. Your Federation saw our technology and assumed we must be conquerors like themselves. They struck first to prevent us from striking them. The landing platform they approached was vast beyond human comprehension, easily large enough to hold a dozen Federation battlecruisers, yet it felt welcoming rather than intimidating, with flowing organic curves that suggested growth rather than construction. As they descended, Marcus noticed something troubling. Entire sections of the Crystal City showed signs of recent damage. Dark scars marked places where Federation missiles had found their targets during the early stages of the war. Even in this paradise, the conflict had left its mark. Waiting for them on the platform was a reception committee unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Dozens of Zephyrians stood in perfect formation, their crystalline bodies catching and reflecting the light of their twin suns. Some were clearly organic beings with skin like polished stone, while others were artificial constructs similar to Kai but each uniquely designed. At the center of the group stood a figure that made Marcus's breath catch. She was tall and elegant, with features that seemed carved from pure starlight. Her body was clearly artificial, but so perfectly designed that she seemed more real than reality itself. Power radiated from her like heat from a forge. "That is High Counselor Lyra," Kai explained quietly. "She leads our people in all matters of war and peace. That she has come personally to greet us shows how seriously they are taking your presence here." The Persistent settled onto the platform with a gentle thud that seemed almost crude compared to the grace of their surroundings. Marcus checked his environmental suit one final time, knowing that this moment would change everything for both their species. As they emerged from their ship, the assembled Zephyrians remained motionless. Marcus felt their attention like a physical weight as they studied him with senses beyond human comprehension. He was probably the first human many of them had ever seen in person. High Counselor Lyra stepped forward, and Marcus was surprised to hear her speak in perfect human standard. "Welcome to Zephyr Prime, Marcus Chen of Earth. Your actions have created ripples that extend far beyond your understanding." Marcus bowed slightly, unsure of proper Zephyrian protocol. "Thank you for your welcome, High Counselor. I come seeking only to return Kai to his people, and perhaps find a way to end the suffering between our races." Lyra's crystalline features shifted into what might have been a smile. "Unit Commander Zephyr 7 has transmitted a complete record of your interactions. We have observed human kindness for the first time through his experiences. It has forced us to reconsider many assumptions about your species." Kai stepped forward and performed an elaborate ritual greeting that involved geometric patterns traced in the air. The other Zephyrians responded in kind, creating a brief dance of light and motion that was beautiful to watch. "High Counselor," Kai said formally, "I request permission to address the Grand Council regarding my experiences among humans. I believe peace may be possible if we can overcome our mutual misunderstandings." Lyra nodded gravely. "The Council awaits both of you. But first, Marcus Chen, there are things you must understand about our situation. The war you seek to end has already claimed millions of lives on both sides. Trust will not come easily." They were escorted through the Crystal City on floating platforms that responded to thought rather than touch. Marcus tried not to stare too obviously at the wonders around them, but it was impossible not to be amazed. Gardens of living light grew alongside streets of flowing metal, while aerial dancers performed in the sky above. The Zephyrian people they passed were equally fascinating. Each individual seemed to be a unique work of art, whether organic or artificial. There were no standard templates or mass production. Every being was crafted according to their own aesthetic vision and functional needs. How do you maintain unity with so much diversity? Marcus asked as they glided through a marketplace where vendors sold crystallized music and bottled starlight. We share common purpose, Lyra explained. Unity does not require uniformity. Each individual contributes their unique perspective to the collective wisdom. It is a concept your species might find useful. The Grand Council chambers were a marvel of engineering and artistry. The vast dome overhead showed real-time images of the galaxy, with current ship movements and battle locations marked in gentle pulses of light. Council members sat in flowing circles that reformed constantly as different speakers took the floor. Marcus found himself the center of attention as Kai presented their story to the assembled leaders. The android spoke with passion about human ingenuity, determination, and capacity for compassion. He described Marcus's workshop, their conversations during the repair process, and the dangerous journey back to Zephyrian space. But not all council members were convinced. Several speakers rose to question whether one human's kindness could represent an entire species. They pointed to Federation aggression, the destruction of Zephyrian colonies, and the millions of casualties on both sides. This human may be exceptional, declared a council member whose form resembled crystallized flame, but his people continue their attacks even as we speak. 3 more of our exploration vessels were destroyed yesterday while studying a nebula that threatened no one. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He was not a diplomat or politician, just a mechanic who fixed broken things. But Kai's faith in him gave him courage to speak. Honorable counselors, Marcus began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. I cannot defend all the actions of my government or military, but I can tell you what I've learned from Kai. Our species are not so different as we believe. He told them about human curiosity and the drive to explore that had taken them to the stars. He spoke of their ability to adapt and overcome obstacles, but also of their fear of the unknown. Most importantly, he shared his conviction that both species wanted the same things: peace, security, and the chance to create something beautiful. War is destroying the best parts of both our peoples, Marcus concluded. Kai has shown me that Zephyrians are not the emotionless conquerors our leaders believe, and I hope I've shown him that humans are more than the violent primitives you thought us to be. The chamber fell silent as the council considered his words. Marcus could feel the tension in the air as centuries of mistrust struggled against the possibility of hope. Finally, High Counselor Lyra spoke. Your words carry wisdom, Marcus Chen, but words alone cannot end a war. If peace is to come, it must begin with actions that prove good faith on both sides. Are you prepared to be part of such actions? Marcus looked at Kai, seeing his friend's encouraging nod. Yes, he said simply. Whatever it takes. Finding the Zephyrian survivors proved even more challenging. Their exploration vessel had been caught in a cascade failure of space-time, leaving it partially phased between dimensions. Half the ship existed in normal space while the other half flickered in and out of reality like a ghost. The dimensional anchors are failing, reported navigation specialist Vex, whose crystalline body pulsed with computational light. If we do not reach them soon, they will be lost between realities forever. Marcus stared at the impossible sight through their viewports. The Zephyrian ship appeared to be tearing itself apart and reforming constantly, caught in a loop of creation and destruction. Occasionally, he could see figures moving within the translucent sections, beings trapped in a nightmare of shifting existence. How many crew? He asked. 47, Kai replied, his voice heavy with concern, including my former commander and several promising young engineers. They were studying quantum resonance patterns when the battle began. They never should have been in danger. Dr. Webb was studying the sensor readings with fascination and horror. The cellular damage from dimensional flux would be catastrophic. Even if we extract them, they may not survive the integration back into normal spacetime. But the Zephyrian medical team was more optimistic. Their technology was designed to work with quantum states and probability matrices. Where human medicine saw impossible damage, they saw complex puzzles to be solved. We can stabilize them, assured Chief Healer Nexus, whose form resembled a living constellation. But the extraction itself will require precise timing and absolute coordination between our technologies. The plan they developed was typically human in its audacious simplicity. They would use their ship's adaptive hull to create a resonance field, matching the dimensional frequency of the trapped vessel. At the moment of perfect synchronization, they would extend rescue pods to extract the survivors before the harmonic collapsed. The margin for error is less than 0.003%, Vex calculated. Human reaction times may not be sufficient for such precision. Marcus grinned, the expression translating poorly to Zephyrian understanding. You obviously haven't seen a human with their back against the wall. We specialize in impossible shots. The synchronization required Marcus to pilot manually, while the Zephyrian team managed the quantum calculations. It was like trying to land on a soap bubble while riding a lightning bolt. Every control input had to be perfect, and there would be no second chances. As they approached the phasing ship, Marcus could see the trapped crew more clearly. Some were obviously in distress, their forms flickering unstably between solid and translucent. Others seemed to be maintaining cohesion through sheer force of will, using their advanced consciousness to resist dimensional dissolution. Frequency lock achieved, Vex announced. Initiating resonance field. The living hull began to sing, producing harmonic frequencies that made Marcus's teeth ache. Around them, space itself seemed to thicken and flow as their ship forced reality to bend according to their needs. Contact in 3, 2, Mark! Marcus felt the moment of perfect alignment like an electric shock through his nervous system. For an instant, both ships existed in exactly the same dimensional state. He triggered the rescue pods without conscious thought, pure instinct guiding his actions. The pods shot across the gap between vessels like bullets, their Zephyrian operators using quantum teleportation to place them precisely where the survivors were located. Marcus held the resonance for exactly 4.7 seconds before the strain threatened to tear their own ship apart. Pods returning, Kai announced with relief. All 47 survivors recovered, but their troubles were far from over. The rescued Zephyrians were in various states of dimensional flux, some barely maintaining physical coherence. Their medical bay became a scene of frantic activity as the joint crew worked to stabilize quantum matrices and cellular structures that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Dr. Webb found herself working alongside beings of pure energy, learning medical techniques that challenged everything she thought she knew about biology. They're not just healing the body, she told Marcus during a brief break. They're teaching the quantum fields how to remember their proper configuration. Meanwhile, the rescued Federation crew was struggling with the reality of their situation. They had been saved by the enemy, treated with kindness by beings they had been taught to hate, and shown technology that made their own seem primitive by comparison. This changes everything, Commander Park said quietly, as he watched Zephyrian healers work to save a human pilot whose life support had failed. How do we go back to fighting people who would die to save our lives? Ensign Santos had perhaps the most dramatic transformation. Initially hostile and suspicious, she gradually began working with the Zephyrian engineering team to help repair systems damaged during the rescue. Her technical background allowed her to appreciate the elegance of their solutions. Look at this, she showed Marcus, pointing to a display of the ship's self-repair functions. They don't just fix damage, they make it better than it was before. Every problem becomes an opportunity for improvement. The rescued Zephyrian crew was equally affected by their experience. Many had never seen humans up close before, and certainly never imagined being saved by them. They were particularly fascinated by human improvisation and the ability to find solutions through intuition rather than calculation. Your species thinks in patterns we cannot predict, observed engineering specialist Prism, whose body had finally stabilized into a form resembling living diamond. When faced with our dimensional phasing, you did not attempt to understand the mathematics. You simply felt your way to the answer. As they prepared to leave the shattered reach, both groups of survivors found themselves changed by the experience. Federation and Zephyrian crew members worked together naturally, sharing knowledge and perspectives that neither side possessed alone. But their mission was not complete. Deep in the heart of the chaotic region, their sensors had detected something that made no sense. A massive structure that appeared to be both artificial and natural, Federation and Zephyrian, created and destroyed simultaneously. It's impossible, Vex stated flatly. The readings suggest a construction that exists in all possible states at once. No known technology could create such an effect. Marcus studied the sensor data with growing excitement. The structure reminded him of something he had seen in Kai's damaged memory files during the original repairs. What if it's not technology at all? What if it's something else entirely? As they approached the mysterious object, they discovered that it was indeed impossible, and absolutely real. A vast crystalline construction that seemed to grow and rebuild itself, according to patterns that neither human nor Zephyrian science could explain. And inside it, they detected life signs from both species, survivors who had somehow learned to work together to create something that transcended everything either race thought they knew about reality. The real rescue mission was just beginning. The structure defied every law of physics both species understood. It existed as a massive crystalline cathedral that seemed to grow organically from the twisted spacetime of the shattered reach, its walls flowing like liquid while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Most impossibly, it pulsed with a combined rhythm that matched both human heartbeats and Zephyrian energy cycles. Life signs confirmed, Dr. Webb reported, her voice tight with amazement. 63 humans and 41 Zephyrians, all alive and apparently stable. But Marcus, their biosignatures are changed somehow. Marcus leaned over her shoulder to study the readings. The survivors inside showed vital signs that were enhanced beyond normal parameters. Human heart rates were stronger and more efficient, while Zephyrian energy patterns had gained organic rhythms that shouldn't have been possible for artificial beings. How long have they been in there? Commander Park asked. Kai consulted his chronometers and external data streams. Based on battle records, approximately 18 months. They were among the first casualties when the dimensional cascade began. 18 months of working together to survive, Marcus mused. No wonder they've created something impossible. When humans and Zephyrians truly cooperate, we don't just solve problems, we transcend them. Approaching the structure required delicate maneuvering through gravity fields that seemed to welcome their ship rather than resist it. The living hull resonated sympathetically with the crystalline construction, creating harmonies that made everyone aboard feel strangely peaceful. Receiving transmission, Vex announced. Multiple sources, both human and Zephyrian frequencies, but perfectly synchronized. The message that came through their speakers was unlike anything they had ever heard. Human voices and Zephyrian harmonic communications merged into a single statement that conveyed meaning beyond words. Welcome, friends from the outside reality. We have been expecting you. Please dock at the heart chamber and join us in the greater work. The docking port that opened for them was a marvel of hybrid engineering. Human practicality merged seamlessly with Zephyrian elegance, creating an airlock that functioned perfectly while being beautiful to behold. As they passed through, Marcus felt a tingling sensation that suggested they were entering an environment where the normal rules had been rewritten. The interior of the structure was even more amazing than the outside. Corridors flowed in organic curves that somehow accommodated both human and Zephyrian proportions perfectly. The walls themselves were alive, pulsing gently with integrated biomechanical systems that provided air, gravity, and energy in perfect harmony. They were greeted by a reception committee that stopped Marcus in his tracks. Humans and Zephyrians stood together, not as allies of necessity but as a genuinely integrated community. Even more remarkable, both species showed signs of mutual adaptation. The humans moved with enhanced grace and showed improved physical capabilities, while the Zephyrians displayed emotional responses and creative spontaneity that was purely biological in origin. At the center of the group stood a figure that made everyone gasp. Captain Elena Vasquez had been presumed dead when her Federation cruiser was destroyed in the first battle of the Shattered Reach. Now she stood before them, her human form enhanced with crystalline implants that made her eyes glow with inner light. Beside her was Constructor Prime Zenth, a Zephyrian leader whose traditional metallic form now pulsed with organic biorhythms that matched Captain Vasquez perfectly. They moved in unconscious synchronization, as if they had become two parts of a single being. Captain Vasquez? Commander Park stepped forward, his voice filled with disbelief. The Federation reported you killed in action. We held memorial services. She smiled, and the expression held depths of understanding that seemed impossible for any human to possess. Death is such a limiting concept, Commander. We discovered that when faced with certain extinction, our species could choose evolution instead. Constructor Prime Zenth spoke in harmonics that somehow conveyed human emotional content. The dimensional flux should have killed us all. Instead, it provided the catalyst for something unprecedented. Human adaptability combined with Zephyrian consciousness networking created possibilities that neither species imagined alone. Dr. Webb was scanning the survivors with every instrument at her disposal. This is incredible. The humans show enhanced neural activity and improved cellular regeneration. The Zephyrians have developed biological components that shouldn't be possible for artificial beings. We are no longer purely artificial or purely biological, explained a young Zephyrian engineer whose form now included living tissue grown from human DNA samples. We have become something new, something better. Marcus felt a chill of recognition. This was evolution in action, but directed by conscious choice rather than random mutation. Both species had faced extinction and chosen to transcend their original limitations by embracing the best qualities of their former enemies. Captain Vasquez led them deeper into the structure, explaining how the survivors had worked together during the first desperate months. Faced with failing life support and collapsing reality, they had been forced to share resources, knowledge, and eventually their very essence to survive. The breakthrough came when Zenth and I attempted a direct neural link to coordinate our repair efforts, she explained. We expected it to be temporary, but the dimensional flux had changed us. The connection became permanent, and through us our peoples learned to truly understand each other. They entered a vast central chamber where the real miracle became apparent. Hundreds of hybrid workers, both human and Zephyrian, labored together on projects that defied categorization. They were building technology that was simultaneously grown and manufactured, creating art that was both logical and emotional, developing music that could be calculated and felt at the same time. "What are you building here?" Kai asked, his voice filled with wonder. Constructor Prime Zenth's harmonics carried undertones of excitement that resonated through the crystalline walls. "We are building the future, a synthesis of everything our peoples can become when we stop seeing differences as barriers and start seeing them as opportunities." Ensign Santos, who had been quietly observing everything, suddenly stepped forward. "You're not just survivors, are you? You're pioneers. You've discovered what our species could become together." Captain Vasquez nodded, her enhanced eyes reflecting depths of possibility that made Marcus's head spin. "Exactly. And now we need to share this discovery with both our peoples. The war must end, not through victory or defeat, but through transformation." The implications were staggering. If what they had achieved here could be reproduced, it would mean the end of the conflict and the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history. Two species becoming more than either could be alone. But as Marcus studied the hybrid community around them, he realized that bringing this revelation to the outside universe would be the greatest challenge yet. Neither the Federation nor the Zephyrian Empire was ready for such radical change. Fear and mistrust ran too deep to be overcome by simple demonstration. "How do we convince them?" Marcus asked. "How do we show our peoples that this is possible without triggering panic or persecution?" Captain Vasquez and Constructor Prime Zenth exchanged a look that conveyed volumes of shared thought. "We don't convince them," she said finally. "We inspire them. And that, my friend, is where you come in." The plan they developed was audacious even by human standards. Rather than trying to explain the impossible transformation they had witnessed, they would demonstrate it through action. The hybrid survivors would return to normal space, but not as refugees or prisoners. They would return as ambassadors of possibility, living proof that the war could end in something greater than peace. Marcus found himself at the center of the most complex diplomatic mission in galactic history. The rescued crews from both sides had been fundamentally changed by their experience in the hybrid community. They no longer saw each other as enemies, but as partners in an unprecedented experiment in conscious evolution. "The Federation will think we've been brainwashed or infected," Commander Park observed as they prepared for departure. "The Zephyrian Empire will likely assume we've been compromised by human irrationality. Both sides will want to quarantine us." Dr. Webb nodded grimly. "Standard protocol for this kind of contact would be immediate isolation and extensive testing. They'll assume we've been exposed to some kind of alien influence. Captain Vasquez, now serving as the primary liaison between human and Zephyrian consciousness, smiled with an expression that held depths of understanding impossible for an unenhanced mind. They're not wrong. We have been influenced, but not controlled or conquered, elevated. The structure itself had grown a specialized chamber for their ship, one that would allow them to carry a piece of the hybrid reality back to the outside universe. The crystalline walls pulsed with energy that stabilized the impossible technologies they had witnessed, creating a bubble of enhanced space-time that traveled with them. As they prepared to leave, Marcus realized how profoundly he had been changed by the experience. Not physically like the long-term survivors, but philosophically. He had seen the future of both species, and it was more beautiful than anything either had imagined alone. Kai stood beside him at the observation deck as the shattered reach fell away behind them. The android's consciousness had been expanded by contact with the hybrid community, gaining emotional depth that transformed his entire understanding of existence. "Are you afraid?" Kai asked, and the question carried implications that neither had possessed months ago when they first met. Marcus considered the question seriously. They were about to attempt something that could either end the war or escalate it to unthinkable levels. If the demonstrations failed, if fear overcame wonder, the consequences could be catastrophic. Terrified, Marcus admitted, but also hopeful. For the first time since this war began, I can see a way for it to end that doesn't require anyone to lose. Their first stop was a neutral space station that served as a hub for prisoner exchanges. The facility was run by an independent consortium that had managed to maintain neutrality throughout the conflict. It was the perfect place to begin demonstrating the possibilities they had discovered. The station commander, a grizzled human veteran named Morrison, was initially suspicious of their mixed crew and hybrid technologies. But his skepticism quickly turned to amazement as he witnessed the capabilities they had gained. "I've never seen anything like this," Morrison said as he watched Dr. Webb and her Zephyrian colleagues heal injuries that should have required months of treatment. Human medicine enhanced with quantum healing principles. It's like watching miracles become routine, but it was the smaller demonstrations that proved most convincing. Commander Park and his Zephyrian counterparts working together to solve engineering problems that had stumped the station's technical staff for years. Ensign Santos collaborating with hybrid artists to create music that touched both logical and emotional understanding simultaneously. Word of their presence spread quickly through both Federation and Empire networks. Within days, representatives from both governments arrived at the station demanding explanations and threatening consequences for unauthorized contact with enemy forces. Admiral Rebecca Martinez represented the Federation, position with characteristic military directness. "Commander Park, you and your crew will submit to immediate medical examination and debriefing. These aliens have clearly subjected you to some form of mental conditioning." High Counselor Lyra arrived with a Zephyrian delegation that was equally concerned about contamination. "Unit Commander Zephyr 7, your neural patterns show significant deviation from baseline parameters. We must determine what influence these humans have exerted upon your consciousness matrix." It was Captain Vasquez who provided the answer neither side expected. Stepping forward with Constructor Prime Zenth moving in perfect synchronization beside her, she addressed both delegations simultaneously. "We have not been contaminated or controlled," she stated, her enhanced voice carrying harmonics that made both humans and Zephyrians listen, despite their intentions. "We have been elevated. We have discovered what our species can become when we choose cooperation over conquest. The demonstration that followed transformed everything." Captain Vasquez and Constructor Prime Zenth worked together to solve a complex engineering problem that had been paralyzing the station's life support systems. But they didn't just repair the damage, they improved it beyond anything either species had achieved alone. "Impossible," Admiral Martinez whispered as she watched human intuition merge seamlessly with Zephyrian calculation to create solutions that transcended both approaches. High Counselor Lyra's crystalline features reflected her inner turmoil. Such integration should not be stable. Organic and artificial consciousness operate on incompatible principles. Dr. Webb stepped forward with data that challenged both assumptions. "Not incompatible, complementary. Human creativity provides the inspiration while Zephyrian logic provides the structure. Together, they create possibilities that neither could achieve alone." The next several hours were filled with demonstrations that gradually eroded the certainties both sides had brought to the station. Hybrid technologies that solved problems thought unsolvable. Artistic collaborations that touched minds in ways pure logic or pure emotion never could. Medical techniques that healed not just bodies but the fundamental patterns of existence itself. But the most powerful moment came when Kai addressed both delegations directly. Standing in the center of the conference chamber, surrounded by representatives of two species at war, the android spoke with a voice that carried the wisdom of both worlds. For months, I believed I was a Zephyrian who had learned about humans. Then I thought I was something between both species. Now I understand the truth. I am what both our peoples can become. Not human, not Zephyrian, but something greater that includes the best of both. Admiral Martinez and High Counselor Lyra exchanged a look across the species barrier that had seemed absolute just hours before. In that moment, both realized they were witnessing the first stirrings of genuine peace. The war is ending, Marcus said quietly, understanding flooding through him. Not because anyone won or lost, but because we're all becoming something new. As if responding to his words, the hybrid technologies throughout the station began to resonate with harmonic frequencies that touched every consciousness present. For a brief moment, humans and Zephyrians, organics and artificials felt what it was like to share perspective across the boundaries that had divided them. The galaxy would never be the same. In the months that followed, the transformation spread beyond anything anyone had imagined. Voluntary integration programs began on worlds throughout both empires. Scientists from both species worked together to understand the principles behind hybrid consciousness. Artists collaborated to create works that transcended the limitations of single-species perception. Marcus returned to his workshop, but he was no longer alone. Kai worked beside him, and together they repaired not just broken machines but broken relationships between species that had thought themselves enemies forever. Their small workspace became a symbol of what the galaxy could become when beings chose understanding over fear. The war that had threatened to destroy both civilizations became instead the catalyst for something unprecedented in galactic history. Two species had found a way to become more than either could be alone, creating a future where diversity was strength and cooperation was evolution. And it all began with a simple, human mechanic who had found a damaged android in a scrap yard and made the choice to fix what was broken rather than profit from the destruction. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the largest changes in the universe.